Last week we introduced ratios. This will be a quick video reviewing everything we discussed in class. Words to know are ratio, part to whole, colon, and fraction. Let's start by taking a look at what a ratio represents. Ratios represent a comparison between two quantities. Let's take a look at this image below. Let's think of it as a classroom. For this ratio, I could say I have 5 girls to 15 boys. Notice I use the word to, which is one form of a way that you can write ratios. You can also write ratios by using a colon. For example, so some of you call a colon the 2 dots, but remember the proper term is a colon. Okay, and the last way we can write this ratio is writing it as a division problem, but it looks similar to a fraction. The reason this is not a fraction is because it is not a part to whole ratio. It is a part to part ratio, which we will talk about more in just a second. Now we are going to look at part to part versus part to whole. In the previous slide where we said 5 girls to 15 boys, that represents a part to part because the girls are part of the class and the boys are part of the class. But together, they are a whole group of students. So let's look if we can write a ratio to represent the whole, a part to whole comparison. Let's do the boys to the whole class. So if I'm thinking about the boys to the whole class, I could say I have 15 boys to 20 students. I could also write this as 15 boys colon 20 students. And lastly, we could write it as a fraction or a division problem. The 15 boys to 20 students actually represents a true fraction because it does represent a part to a whole. Why don't you pause the video and try to write the ratio for girls to the whole class? Welcome back. Now check your answers to what you said a ratio of girls to the whole class would be. You should have written 5 girls to 20 students, 5 girls colon 20 students, or 5 girls over 20 students. Now let's practice. The directions say determine if the problem is part to part or part to whole. Write the ratio for each scenario. Martha has 10 shirts. 3 are red and the rest are white. How many red shirts to white shirts does she have? Pause the video, try it on your own, and then come back. So in this question, you should notice she has 10 shirts, 3 are red, and the rest are white. So my first thought would be, how many are white? Well, if there's a total of 10, that means that there are 7 that are white. And the next thing you have to notice when writing ratios is the order. It says red shirts to white shirts. And that tells me what type of problem this is. This is a part to part. So then I know that I need to put in my part to part that 3 would come before the 7. So 3 to 7. You could also write this as 3 colon 7 or as a fraction as 3 over 7. Or, sorry, not a true fraction, as a division problem. Let's go to number 2. Tom has 13 video games. 5 are action games, 2 are adventure, and the rest are sports. How many sports games to total games does Tom have? Pause the video and try this on your own. Okay, the first thing you should have noticed, there were a total of 13 video games. 5 are action, 2 are adventure, and the rest are sports. So I don't know how many sports there are right now, but if I think about this, if 5 are action and 2 are adventure, that's 7. But I have a total of 13, which means that there has to be 6 sports. So then I have to think, is this a part to part or a part to whole? Well, the word total games represents this whole amount. So in this problem, it is a part to whole ratio. And we already learned that there are 6 sports, and it says sports games to total games. So that would mean I would have 6 to 13. Or you could write that as 6 colon 13. And lastly, this one is a true fraction, 6 over 13. Let's summarize what we just learned about ratios. I'm going to make a concept map or a brain map to better understand how everything comes together. So the center of our concept map is going to be ratios. We've learned that ratios can be represented in two different ways, as part to part and part to whole. We also discussed that ratios can be written in three different ways. You can write ratios by using a colon, the word to, or a fraction division. Fraction when it is a part to whole, it is a division when it is a part to part. I'm also going to add in another type of ratio that you won't see that often that we're going to put with the part to whole up here. It can also be written as whole to part depending on what order the question is asked. Throughout the unit, you will see that we are going to be adding to the mind map because ratios is an overarching theme for the 6th grade year and also for the 7th grade year. So we are not done with this mind map. That is why it kind of looks blank right now. Well, you made it to the end of the video. Here is an optional practice quizzes. There's only 10 questions. I highly recommend trying these problems out, seeing if you understand the concept. If not, come into tutorials and we are more than welcome to help you.